They even engaged in immoral acts with the women who served at the entrance to the tabernacle. Word of their sins spread throughout Israel, bringing disgrace to their family and dishonor to the priesthood. When Eli heard of his son's actions, he was deeply distressed. He called them and said, "Why do you do such things? I hear from all the people about these wicked deeds of yours. If a man sins against another man, God may mediate for him." Welcome to Mr. Jiminister, where we uncover the hidden lessons within the Bible that still resonate today. Today we'll explore the tragic tale of Eli and his sons, Hophni and Phinehas, a story of corruption, divine judgment, and the enduring importance of integrity. This is a powerful reminder of the consequences that come when leaders stray from God's path. The story begins with Eli, an old and respected priest, serving in the tabernacle at Shiloh. Eli had two sons, Hophni and Phinehas, who were also priests. However, unlike their father, they were corrupt and did not honor the Lord. The Bible tells us that they were scoundrels who had no regard for the Lord or for the duties of the priests. As priests, Hophni and Phinehas were responsible for overseeing the offerings brought by the people, but they misused their position, demanding the best parts of the sacrifices for themselves rather than following the prescribed laws. They would send their servant to take the meat even before the fat was burned as an offering to the Lord. They would say, "Give the priest meat to roast. He won't accept boiled meat from you, but only raw." If anyone tried to protest, they would forcefully take it. Their actions not only disrespected the offerings meant for God, but also abused the people who came to worship. They even engaged in immoral acts with the women who served at the entrance to the tabernacle. Word of their sins spread throughout Israel, bringing disgrace to their family and dishonor to the priesthood. When Eli heard of his son's actions, he was deeply distressed. He called them and said, "Why do you do such things? I hear from all the people about these wicked deeds of yours. If a man sins against another man, God may mediate for him. But if a man sins against the Lord, who will intercede for him?" However, Hophni and Phinehas ignored their father's warnings. They continued in their sinful ways, refusing to change. Though Eli rebuked them, his efforts were too little, too late. He did not take decisive action to remove them from their positions or to discipline them effectively. As a result, a man of God came to Eli with a message from the Lord. He said, "I revealed myself to your ancestors when they were in Egypt. I chose your family to serve me as priests, to offer sacrifices, and to wear the ephod in my presence. But why do you honor your sons more than me? You fatten yourselves on the choice parts of every offering made by my people Israel." The man of God went on to pronounce God's judgment against Eli's household. He declared that Eli's family would be cut off from serving as priests, and that both of his sons would die on the same day as a sign. He also foretold the rise of a faithful priest who would serve the Lord according to his will. This prophecy foreshadowed the end of Eli's line and the beginning of a new chapter in Israel's spiritual leadership. The battle with the Philistines. Not long after, the Israelites went to war with the Philistines, who had long been their enemies. The Israelites were camped at Ebenezer, while the Philistines were camped at Aphek. In the first battle, the Israelites suffered a heavy defeat, losing about 4,000 men. Desperate and confused, the elders of Israel suggested bringing the Ark of the Covenant from Shiloh to the battlefield, believing it would grant them victory. So, they sent for the Ark, and Hophni and Phinehas accompanied it, thinking they could manipulate God's power for their own gain. As the Ark arrived in the camp, the Israelites shouted with such force that the ground shook. Hearing this, the Philistines were initially terrified, thinking that the God of Israel had come into the camp. But they rallied themselves, determined not to be enslaved by the Israelites. In the ensuing battle, the Philistines defeated the Israelites, killing 30,000 foot soldiers. Hophni and Phinehas were killed, just as God had foretold. Worse still, the Ark of the Covenant was captured, a devastating blow to the nation of Israel. A man from the tribe of Benjamin ran from the battlefield back to Shiloh, with news of the defeat. When he arrived, Eli was sitting on his chair by the road, watching and waiting, his heart heavy with fear for the ark. The messenger told Eli, Israel has fled before the Philistines, and there has been a great slaughter among the people. Your two sons, Hophni and Phinehas, are dead, and the ark of God has been captured. When Eli heard that the ark had been captured, he fell backward from his chair, breaking his neck and dying. He had led Israel for 40 years, but his life ended in tragedy and grief. The loss of his sons and the ark marked the end of an era for Israel, and Eli's family paid the ultimate price for their disobedience. With Eli's death, the time was ripe for Samuel, the young boy who had grown up in the tabernacle under Eli's care, to take his place as a prophet of the Lord. Samuel's rise signaled a new beginning for Israel, one marked by faithfulness and obedience to God. He would go on to become one of Israel's greatest prophets, anointing the first two kings of Israel and guiding the nation back to the Lord. The story of Eli, Hophni, and Phinehas is not just a cautionary tale about individual sin. It's a story about leadership, accountability, and the consequences of spiritual negligence. It teaches us that those who are called to serve in positions of authority, especially in the house of God, must do so with integrity, reverence, and a deep sense of responsibility. Eli's failure to hold his sons accountable led not only to their deaths, but also to the suffering of an entire nation. As leaders, parents, or even as individuals, we are reminded that ignoring sin or turning a blind eye to wrongdoing will not protect us from its consequences. God is patient, but He is also just, and His judgment will eventually come. In today's world, this story speaks to the importance of moral courage and spiritual integrity. Whether we are in positions of leadership or not, we are all called to honor God's commandments and to stand up for what is right, even when it's difficult. We cannot let complacency or favoritism prevent us from doing what is just in God's eyes. Thank you for joining us on Mr. Geminister, as we explored this profound story from the Bible. The tale of Eli and his sons is a testament to the importance of staying faithful to God's path. Until next time, may we each strive to live lives of integrity, honor, and devotion to the Lord.